All right, I think we'll get started then. Thank you all so much for joining today. And I would like to start by saying good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, as we have folks joining from all over the world. And welcome to the So You Want to Implement a Cybersecurity Awareness Campaign webinar. My name is Katie Shipley. I'm the project director for Digital Frontiers. Digital Frontiers is a USAID funded program managed by DAI. And we implement a wide range of digital development programs in 79 countries. We've been doing that for the past 5.5 years. One really critical program in our portfolio is the Digital Connectivity and Cybersecurity Partnership, also known as DCCP. And DCCP is a global US government initiative involving many parts of the US government, but led by the US Department of State. And that DCCP program supports infrastructure development, policy and regulatory reforms, and cyber capacity building in partner countries. And our Digital Frontiers team is lucky enough to implement 5 of these DCCP activities for USAID. And today I am so incredibly excited to highlight our talented cybersecurity awareness campaign teams. These campaigns were implemented under the DCCP SARDI activity and the DCCP DAA activity. And I know I've just thrown a ton of acronyms at you, but I promise we're going to put those definitions in the chat so that you can keep track of the programs. But essentially, the DCCP SARDI activity implements digital literacy and cyber-related activities in South Asia. And the DCCP DAA activity focuses on the Southeast Asia region. So with that orientation in mind, and before I hand this over to my USAID colleague and today's moderator, Kanchana Stenamurthy, I would like to share just a couple administrative notes for the call. So at the bottom of your Zoom screen, you'll see a Q&A function and a chat option. And during the webinar today, please feel free to pose any of your questions for the panelists, and you can do that through the Q&A function or the chat function. So if you haven't already, please enter your name, organization, and where you're from in the chat so we can all say hello and see where everyone's coming from. And with that, I'll hand it over to Kanchana and the panelists. Thank you all.
Great. Thank you so much, Katie. And thank you all for joining us for this really exciting webinar today. My name is Kanchana Stenamurthy, and I'm from USAID, and I'm really happy to be part of our organization funding a lot of these activities. So we've all thought to ourselves, what does cybersecurity mean? We've all thought, I need to protect myself online, but it feels really complicated. You may take steps to protect your passwords. You may have a manager, a password manager, etc. But the subject feels very daunting and not accessible to an everyday citizen unless you're a cybersecurity expert, particularly across the Asia region. So the panelists today are really moving the field forward by not only recognizing that cybersecurity is an important issue for everybody, but thinking of ways to really connect citizens and help build that understanding at the grassroots level of how to stay safe online, which is increasingly important as we move towards a digital world, a digital economy, and communicating online. It is incredibly important to balance the content that people are producing online with safety and security. So with that, I would love to get straight into the panel and hear more from our panelists on exactly how they managed to implement this programming and successfully change mindsets across Asia. So I'm going to go ahead and start introducing our panelists so we can get straight into the questions. So our first panelist is Sathavi At. She is a strategic communications consultant, trainer and coach, and the founder of Think Plastic, with over 15 years of experience working for companies, development partners, and NGOs across Asia. Sathavi was one of the key influences for the Cambodia Online Safety Campaign, implemented by the Digital Asia Accelerator, or DAA. Mohammed Adnan Rahman is a senior associate in Inspira Advisory and Consulting Limited in Bangladesh. Inspira is currently implementing the Bebshe Digital Suroka in Bangladesh under the SARDI initiative to target MSMEs. And Adam Nong is a senior program manager and campaign strategist at Love Frankie with extensive experience in mass media and creative communication. Love Frankie was the partner behind DAA's Only Mine campaign in Mongolia. So, as you can see, we have a range of participants with incredible experience across Asia implementing cybersecurity awareness programs. So I'd love to jump right into the discussion here. So kind of my first question for all the panelists is that understanding the risky online habits of the groups you want to inform about cybersecurity issues can be difficult. Researching your target audience helps shed light on their interests, concerns, and online habits, which all are critical to designing an effective campaign. So my first question to you is, who is your target audience and what research did you do to better understand the user habits and misperceptions that pose cybersecurity risks? Maybe I will start with you, Adam.
Adam, right? Yeah. Okay. So for our Only Mind campaign, which is also called My Mind, right? So it was intended as the national level cybersecurity awareness campaign. So apparently it has different target audience group and different level of awareness. So we try to so initially we try to understand what was the need in the nation and as well as the individual level. So we try to understand this by doing the qualitative research activities that includes, doing an interview with the experts in Mongolia, including the government bodies like the police force, the cybersecurity police force, as well as the other government officials from the data ministry in Mongolia. And we try to also learn from that research and the previous cybersecurity campaigns to learn about what were the issues that the previous campaign worked on and what were the knowledge gap that we need to fill for our campaign basically. And also we also did the informal interviews with the samples of our target audience group, and based on that we had three main target audience. One, the primary target audience being the youth and the teenagers apparently, and the second being the working professionals, and another secondary audience is the parents and the shop owners, so who are the older segment of our target audience group. But they do really have the different messaging that we learned from our research activity. So for example, for youth, it is more associated with the privacy awareness because young people tend to use social media, tends to share photos on their social media accounts, and then there is a need for them to equip with the privacy awareness, digital privacy awareness. Whereas for the working professionals, it is about the password security, more into that because they tend to have a lot of working busy schedules, or jangling with work, and that they tend to underestimate the importance of changing password regularly or setting the strong passwords. And lastly, for the parents and the shop owner, the older segment, it is about the financial cybersecurity threats. Like the least, for example, the OTP scamming. So, which is intended to those because they have very low level of cybersecurity awareness. And yes, that's about it.
Great, thank you so much. I'm sure we're going to see similar themes in Adnan and Satevi's answers as well. But Adnan, go ahead. I'd love to hear from you about Bangladesh.
Hello. So this is Adnan from Bangladesh. So before going into my answer about the target audience, I'd just like to give a bit of context about the MSME scene in Bangladesh overall, since our campaign is focused on cybersecurity specifically for small and medium business owners. So there are roughly around 1 million small and medium enterprises in Bangladesh, and according to most recent data, around 40% of them are online. So they are conducting business digitally. And a study back in 2022 found out that around 55% of those online businesses were started in less than the last 5 years. So they were online very, very recently. And we found out that a lot of that was exacerbated by COVID due to the lockdowns and everything. And what happened as a result was that due to traditional business channels closing down, a lot of business owners were starting to explore online options for the very first time in their lives. So very, very traditional businessmen moving from their brick and mortar stores into trying and selling online without having much familiarity with the online space in general. So there are a lot of people who might not have used online channels much in their personal lives, but were forced to explore those channels to keep their businesses alive. And what happened as a result was, even though they were eager to use online channels, they were not really prepared. So there was a gap in cyber preparedness, which saw a huge rise in cyber threats directed at small and medium businesses and in Bangladesh. And I don't want to throw around too many statistics, but small and medium businesses also account for roughly 60% of employment in Bangladesh. So they really are a backbone of the economy. So any hit to them is a big hit to the Bangladesh economy overall. So they are definitely a very important audience for cybersecurity awareness building. So our campaign launched back in October 2022, but before that, we did a 2-month pre-assessment test. So our study was mostly at learning about the knowledge, attitude, and practice of business owners in Bangladesh in relevance to cybersecurity. So we basically wanted to know how much they know about cybersecurity, basically their familiarity with specific terms, specific threats. We wanted to know about their attitude surrounding cybersecurity. So are they treating it with as much importance as is necessary? And we wanted to find out their actual practices. So what are they doing to keep themselves safe? So we did a nationwide survey around that. So we surveyed a large number of entrepreneurs across 7 districts in Bangladesh. We conducted key interviews with many private sector businesses, with few government officials as well, with large business associations, with the goal of finding out specific business insights. So what we ended up was we classified online business owners into 2 types mainly. So the more advanced users, so people who had been familiar with the internet from a long time, we are calling them ardent adopters. So people who are very familiar with cyber threats as well, who are much more fluent in the digital world. And the other group we are calling laggards. So they are typically of the older generation who are not very personally attuned to using the various social media channels or online channels which are popular in Bangladesh, but have been trying to adopt them recently due to their needs. So they are the ones we are classifying as laggards. And what we found that they have very, very different needs when it comes to cybersecurity as well. So among the laggard group, we found out that there was a big gap in both knowledge and attitude. So a lot of people even failed to grasp the importance of cybersecurity in the first place. They had a notion that these sort of problems only happen to very large businesses. So people who handle a lot of very big data, which was absolutely untrue. In fact, small businesses are disproportionately targeted more because they are less likely to be able to invest in cybersecurity. So we spent those 2 months collecting all sorts of those data points to sort of build our cybersecurity campaign. So it's not just about understanding the gaps in our target audience, but we also try to identify what are the things that they will be most receptive to. So how should our messaging be in order that it's easier to consume for our target audience, down to who should the message be coming from. So I think we will get the chance to go much deeper into that as the discussion goes on. So I think I'll leave it there.
Great, thank you so much. And just a quick note to participants as you're listening to everybody talk, to our audience, please feel free to add any questions into the chat. We'll have a few questions to kind of direct the conversation for a little while and provide an overview, but we'll definitely save some time for audience questions as well. And so Devi, would love to hear from you. And I apologize, Adam, I'll get back to you to introduce your program, but Satevi, if you would like to provide a little bit of context on the campaign that you ran in Cambodia as well before going into the target audience, would be great.
Yeah, thank you, Kanchana. Hello, my name is Satevi. I'm from Cambodia, and so today I'm going to share a little bit about the online safety campaign, that's running here in Cambodia. So we launched this campaign in mid 2020. Actually, it just like a little bit after the pandemic, when everything kind of like a lot of people confused, and it's similar to the case in Bangladesh, that like a lot of business kind of like try to move from like traditional way of doing business and go into online. And when we first start design the campaign, the first thing that we do in order to understand a little bit better about our audience is to do the assessment. So we do reach out to MSME, and we ask them a lot of questions about their challenges, about what is their daily practice in order to keep themselves safe when they go online. And we learn a lot about about their behavior. And one thing that's quite similar as well to what Anand just mentioned is like the small business tend to think that because I'm small, so nobody want to target me, so maybe I'm okay. And so we learn a lot from them, and at the same time we also talk to a partner who working in the space who serve an MSME, because we believe that they do have a lot of learning, a lot of insights when they were like doing programming that support MSME. So the DAA starting to talk to partner, and at the same time kind of like identify who might be the potential partner for our campaign. And then so from those learning, we be able to kind of like put together and be able to see like what are the level of information or the knowledge that like MSME needing right now, because what we are trying to do here with the online safety, it's a campaign, and it about like the way that we do the campaign. Mainly we run it on Facebook, and it's not like a programming that's gonna run forever, right? So the online campaign kind of like have it lives. So we want to make sure that like within the period of time that we have, and within the limitation that we want to design the campaign, what are the key messages that right fit to the need of the MSME at the moment, especially during the early on of the pandemic, when everyone start to kind of like learn new thing, and then try to at the same time like struggling dealing with the business, keep the business alive, and at the same time kind of like try to navigate through this online complication. And then so after the assessment, we be able to put together the learning, and then that's how we start designing our campaign. And just to give you a little bit context as well about Cambodia, we are 16 million population, and more than half of the population, around 9 million, go online. And then so which means like a huge population kind of like trying to take advantage from online. But however, there are also like big gap in terms of the digital skill, especially when we're talking about the cyber awareness. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I think we've lost Kanchana. So I'll just jump back on here quickly to help facilitate. Maybe I don't know if you all knew what one of the other questions were, but I don't know. So Thivi, if you remember one of the other questions, otherwise I can jump in with my own.
Okay, so the next point we gonna discuss is about like what are the recommendations that do we have for one another who want to understand better about the user habit and online behavior to our target audience. So I think because I just start talking just now. Can I hand it over to Adam?
Yes, go ahead.
Right. Sorry. So before that, I haven't introduced my campaign. So let me introduce the campaign first. So my campaign is Cybersecurity Awareness, a nationwide cybersecurity awareness campaign that the USAID implemented in Mongolia. So it was from July 2021 up until March of 2022. So it was actually the project timeline. And then it was so why the campaigns of our fellow panelists focused on MSME, but this specific campaign targets on the mass populations of the Mongolia. So in Mongolia we have 9 million population, and our population reach more than half of the population, so more than 50% of the populations. And because of that, the messages that we delivered are really, I would say, it has to be simple yet effective. It has to be like we trying to create the messaging that, because cybersecurity is, we did the interview, we did the audience research, and we learned that the cybersecurity isn't a familiar topic with majority of the population. So of course, if we tell about the hack, the account hacking and things like that, but they do realize, okay, this is cybersecurity threats. But like the little things like posting your pictures that includes your house numbers or your car number plates can put you real cybersecurity threats. They do not really realize that. So that's why when we talk about this complex topic, complex messaging, we first have to understand the target audience and the behavior and their underlying knowledge gap on that, so that we know how to communicate. So through that, we try to create the message and what kind of insights that we need to tap into, so to create a cue for the audience, and then to equip them with much more useful technical knowledge, like how to change your password. This is like what is the criteria of a strong password, etc. So I'm happy to share about how we translate the insight into the actionable campaign content and activities in the next questions. So I would like to give the floor to SARDI about to discuss on this topic.
Thank you, Adam. I just want to add on a little bit to what Adam just mentioned. Like when it comes to messaging, I think it's really important to have like a clear message, because like when we're talking about like the digital cybersecurity, it's a big topic, right? You can go on and on forever. However, I think for our target audience, especially for the campaign here in Cambodia, we target a MSME that have like a very minimal knowledge in terms of the cybersecurity. So in one of the episode that we talk about is we talking about the how to make a strong password. So it's not all about, okay, you tell them, okay, why it is important to have a strong password, but like for them, like here audience in Cambodia, they interested to know like what are the strong password really mean, because like here in Cambodia, there's a practice of like having something that easy to remember, like birth date or maybe their phone number, and then so it's easily to be like hacked, to be simple, right? So but when we try to kind of like give them the message that, okay, why it is important to have a strong password, they also want us to show that how to make a strong password. So we even show the combination. We kind of like do some example to explain what is the strong password, so that people kind of like start to realize that, reflect back to what they have at the moment, maybe it's not a strong password. So we kind of like do give them step by step in order to kind of like guide them through the way that developing their strong password. And one more step that I also find it surprising when I designed the campaign here. It's not only just about, okay, now we teach you how to do the strong password, right? You have all the combination like that even you yourself sometimes forget to like, because it's so complex. But the thing is, the question that they ask would be like, but how do I change it? Like, what part in my phone do I need to touch? So I'm quite surprised that like a lot of people actually don't really know where to change the password. And then when we learning about their behavior, it's like they actually never change the password from the first time that they start, let's say, their Facebook account. And how do they start their Facebook account? They don't even know how to do it by themselves. Like here in Cambodia, it's very common that like they go to the phone store and then they have the IT guy just sit there, like, now please create an account for me. And from then on, it's just like whatever password that they have, it's gonna be there. And then so for them to understand, okay, why it's important to have a strong password is one step, but how to change it's another step. And I even find something also very interesting, like a lot of people use different phone, right? Some Android users, some iOS user. So in the campaign, so how do we communicate this? We cannot just say, okay, you go to this and then you click this and that, because somebody would say, but I cannot find that in my phone, And then so for us, we kind of like, in order to kind of like reach to this mass audience that like from different background, using different type of technology, we have to find a way in order to kind of like try to match it and then be able like in a way to kind of like make sure that the message is come across.
Thank you. Adnan, would love to hear from you.
Yeah, I think I'll jump in and add a bit to what Sathiri said. I think she really touched on an important point about the difference between awareness and actual behavior change. So one philosophy that we had from the very beginning was the ABC of cybersecurity, if I say. So A is awareness, B is behavior change, and C is culture. So it starts with knowing something, building your knowledge around something, then changing your habits around that knowledge. And then culture is when everyone starts doing it, so it becomes common practice. So particularly with our laggard population, we struggled to even depart our knowledge properly because they had so little pre-knowledge of internet terminology in Bangladesh overall. So one thing that's a very common problem in Bangladesh is that a lot of cyber terminology don't translate very well to local terms. So when you talk about what is a strong password or what is multi-factor authentication, a lot of people, that sort of knowledge or that sort of language goes completely over their heads. So one thing that we also tried to push in our campaign was standardization of terminology so that everyone becomes familiar with these terms in the first place. So getting them to know about these terms is one thing, but changing habits is completely different. I think I saw one of the questions in the chat was about risky behaviors. So in the pre-assessment that we did, we found out that particularly among the laggard audience that we are calling, around 70% of them had the tendency to use easy to guess passwords. So what do I mean by easy to guess? They are either using their birth dates, their children's birth date, or children's names, or easy to guess phrases. So and another statistic was that a majority of Facebook account hacks happen due to easy to guess passwords. So that was a very interesting insight for us as well. So not only did we have to tell people that strong passwords are necessary, we also had to then teach them that you should go on this and this feature to change it. So one additional problem that we found in terms of setting up passwords was that in the older generation, there's also a habit of setting up their accounts through their children. So I'm no stranger to this because when I was a teenager, my dad asked me to open up a Facebook account for him. So I was in charge of setting up his account and password. So this is unbelievably common in Bangladesh, actually. which leads to a lot of unsafe practices. So we had to build awareness around that as well. So I think that's one thing to remember when designing any other campaign, was that every audience will have differences in terms of that. There are small differences everywhere. So one thing that we always try to maintain or consistently keep in our messaging was reassurance. So we're not just saying that this is something that happens, a lot of problems happen due to this. We also try to really assert on the fact that it's not that hard to get used to these things. And you should also be reassured that if you follow a few basic habits, you can avoid a lot of problems. So we always try to maintain that reassuring tone in all of our messages. So I think I just wanted to press on that point as well. I think we also have a discussion point regarding the overuse of cautionary messaging in general. So I think one thing that we did find in the more rural parts of Bangladesh, so these are businesses which are a bit farther from city areas, a lot of people tend to demonize the internet as a whole if they run into any personal problems. So I spoke to this business owner. He was a restaurant owner who had been using online delivery services for a while, and he had had his account hacked. And as a result, he had stopped using all internet apps altogether, because that's what he associated the internet with. He thought that everything on the internet must be bad. So you really have to maintain that balance between, yes, this is serious, but no, you don't have to be scared. You can overcome this. So finding that right balance is sort of different for every audience.
Thank you so much. Great points by all the panelists, and I completely agree with this point of ensuring that cybersecurity is taken seriously while not making it too daunting and scary so that people don't even want to use the internet for all of these functions at the end of the day. So thank you so much. And I'm seeing a lot of great questions coming in from the audience that I definitely want to turn to. But I'll ask maybe one or two more questions, and then we'll start kind of looking at some of the audience questions. So we spent a lot of time talking about your target audience, understanding their, where they're coming from, and thinking about the specific considerations you need to move to kind of change their behavior. So all of your campaigns ended up being very successful at engaging your audience, which is not an easy thing to do, especially when you're talking about cybersecurity. And as we were just talking about, scare tactics about cybersecurity vulnerabilities might not have the intended effect. So how did you use what you learned about your audience? And I know you've talked about this a little bit, but just to expand, how did you use what you learned to really interest and engage them? And how did you use that to make your campaign successful? I'll turn it to any of the panelists to start.
Yeah, so I will just start for these questions. So for my campaigns, as I have already talked a brief information about the target audience, right? So we found it was important to when we talk about the unfamiliar topic like cybersecurity to mass public, so we thought that it is important to associate that unfamiliar message with something that they're familiar and something that they really wants to consume. And when we talk about the cybersecurity, it is, of course, it's complex. There is a lot to speak, but we really need to curate the messaging into something that they understand, like Agnes said. And our approach was to, okay, so we know this is a complicated and complex topic, and we know that if we just say, okay, change your password, set your password like that, most of the people won't really be interested in consuming that kind of message. So so the questions really on what content that we were craft that messaging into, like in which form of content and which media that we were trying to reach that message into. So for the content, we learned that in Mongolia, music is praised by the whole nations, and the karaoke behaviors is also a very dominant culture in Mongolia. And we try to tap into that pop cultures when we talk about the cybersecurity. And of course, our primary target audience is youth. So we went a bit far in tapping even with the pop stars and the rap the stars in Mongolia, so that we reach to their target audience. And also there was a bit of the challenge, like when we create the song, right? If we just talk about the cybersecurity message into the song, and that's just going to be I would say something like the propaganda song with the music into that. So we didn't want the message into something like that. So we try to learn about the audience inside is that, as I told earlier, for youth, it was about the privacy. So they often underestimate the importance of the privacy. And then what we learn is that, in the youth and of course, in the most of the love relationship, sharing password becomes the love language. So either it is girl or a boy, a man, a woman, they just like, okay, if you love me, you have to share your password if you want the trust in me. But actually, it is not about trusting or not trusting someone in your relationship, but it is about invading someone's privacy. So we try to establish that even if it is someone you are the closest to, you shouldn't share your password. So not to mention the others people, like someone you don't really know, on random people on internet, and the consequences is unbearable. So we try to tap into that insight, and we created a music video with that famous pop star and rap star, and we try to make the music and the lyrics to be catchy, so that it just goes straight into audience mindset and just aware of, okay, the privacy is something that we need. We shouldn't be underestimated about that. And we broadcast that mainly on the social media and the YouTube, because it is the main media channels that audience consume anyway. And the videos, like, we didn't even have to put a lot of media spending on, but the music video organically reached to 1.7 million people. The video received 1.7 million views, which is the half of the populations in Mongolia. And the audience really, of course, I would really love to share the impacts of the campaigns later on. The audience have them, some of the that we also learned some of the improvement areas to improve on. But overall, we could try to create a message that resembles with the audience. It is easier for the audience to understand the importance of the privacy. And then we try to communicate the other messaging, like setting up the strong passwords, and the other terms, the cybersecurity terms, like SSS, like OTP, what is your OTP, what is two-factor authentication, etc. in the follow-up campaign activities later. So yeah, that's what I wanted to share about the campaign.
Go ahead, Sativi or Adnan, and then we'll turn it over to audience questions.
All right, I think I'll just talk about two very, very broad strategic decisions that we made. So the first one was regarding affiliations. So one thing that we found out early in our assessment phase was that a lot of people were relating any sort of cautionary messages to the government, because in Bangladesh, the government does a lot of awareness building work, not just about cybersecurity, about all sorts of things. So we figured out early on that if we have a sort of government partner aligned with our campaign, partnering with our campaign, then that would amplify the effectiveness of our messages. So for that purpose, what we did was we partnered with the SME Foundation in Bangladesh. So the SME Foundation is under the Ministry of Industry and Commerce in Bangladesh, and they're sort of the apex body for SMEs. And they do a lot of e-commerce building work, a lot of training for small and medium entrepreneurs. So if our campaign was if they were affiliated with our campaign, that automatically amplifies a lot of the work we were doing. The second thing was who the messages are being endorsed by, who are they coming from? So we were basically brainstorming around what sort of celebrity endorsements or whatever we might use, because that's very popular in Bangladesh and in other South Asian countries as well. So using big name celebrities is a good tactic. But in the case of small and medium entrepreneurs, we asked them, who do you want to go to when you face a problem, a cyber problem? So one thing that was very, very common is that they try to go to senior members in their community. So other businessmen within their network, they are the people they look up to for tips and tricks. So we found a group of influencers who are also business owners. So in Bangladesh, a lot of online influencers also have their own Facebook pages, also have their own businesses, and they don't always have the large national audiences, but their whatever small audiences they have, take them very seriously, take their messaging very, very seriously. So we used a few smaller business-oriented influencers to partner with our campaign instead of going for the larger national celebrities. And I think that made our campaign very, very effective in its messaging. So I think just last week we had a webinar for our campaign, which was done in collaboration with one of our women in e-commerce partners. So there is one large community of entrepreneurs dedicated to serving women entrepreneurs specifically, and their president is a very well-known figure in that community. And as she was one of the panelists, it created a really big buzz within the group when we hosted that webinar, and we had a lot of participation from that community. So I think using influencers who have very relevant reach and relevance within the target audience is very, very helpful. So I think those are two broad strategies that we used a lot. I think I'd just like to add one more thing. So since our campaign is 1 year long, you really have to plan out your activities well. So one thing that we did was we tried to align some of our big activities with national and international days of importance. So October is globally seen as Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and specifically the last week of October is reserved for awareness around businesses. So our we did a sort of awareness campaign, awareness launch event where we brought together various important stakeholders from private sector, from government, from law enforcement on October to launch our campaign. We also did events around National ICT Day in Bangladesh, and we also did events around World Data Privacy Day. So what happens as a result of planning events around these timelines is that a lot of people are already talking about cybersecurity at that point. So there are a lot of eyeballs on things related to cybersecurity, and that usually helps to amplify your messaging as well. So people can see that this is actually important, and it helps to gain further relevance with your audience. So those are very broad level strategies that we used. I think we can get into a few specific questions later on.
Thank you. So Tavi, do you want to comment on this, or we can also move over to some of the audience questions?
I think we can move over.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, thank you so much. And I did notice a couple of audience questions about how to make this relevant and exciting rather than just having PDFs. How do you really connect with the audience? And you've just heard from a couple of our panelists just now that, you know, using influencers and people in the space in creative ways can really make the campaign a lot more dynamic and interesting. And on YouTube, you can actually see the video from the Mongolia campaign featuring some of these music stars that Adam mentioned. So I'm going to ask one question from Komal at the Global Cyber Alliance. She's asked, and who previously, ran or worked on Digital Frontiers. What is one thing you would want USAID, State Department, and other donors to know about how to invest in cybersecurity awareness raising differently? And again, to any of the participants.
Sorry, Kanchana, can you repeat the question again? I'm kind of like cut off a little bit.
Sure, no worries. So the question is, what would you like essentially donors to know about cybersecurity campaigns and how to invest in them differently or expand their investment in cybersecurity awareness?
Well, I can go first. I think if the donor want to look into investing in the cybersecurity campaign, I would recommend like first maybe do a little bit of testing before you kind of like go heavily thinking that okay, this is something that you really want to invest, because I think we all know that when we work on the digital space, things kind of like changing very quickly, and also like the habit of the user and also the technology itself kind of like changing very rapidly. So what we learn now maybe not relevant in the next 6 months or so. So if you want to design like a long term campaign, maybe leave some flexibility for adaptation. It's not like okay, this is the stone, designed it from the beginning and we're gonna roll out that way. For me, I don't see that like my work in terms of like in this space, like leave a lot of flexibility, and adaptation is a crucial thing to make the campaign success. Because like when you roll out the campaign, it's really important to test out whether like what you learn from the audience and right now designed it into part of the campaign activity really resonated to the audience, whether like they respond to your campaign, and then learning from that kind of like will help you to adapt and then kind of like redefine the way that you are running the rest of the campaign. So that would be my message.
Thank you, Satavi. That's super useful.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Adam.
Yeah. So one thing I want to add about is it also depends on which regions or geographic areas that program is going to be run as well. And it is important to do need assessments with the cybersecurity expert in that particular country or the regions, and also to go to discuss with some of the previous organizations that worked on the cybersecurity campaigns, because they had a higher chance to know what are the knowledge gap and need assessment for that. But for example, for Southeast Asia, I mean especially in Thailand and Myanmar and Vietnam, right now I see that there is a strong rise in cybersecurity scams, especially the identity thief, and especially it's even, I mean, we can always promote about the practices such as setting a strong password, importance of your privacy, etc. But for example, someone that I know got hacked by someone, and then that person sent a message to me and saying, please borrow me, for example, $1,000. And for me, although I know about all the practices, but for me, in my WhatsApp, it is someone that I know. So for example, if it was my professor, I cannot really say no. So if I just transfer the money to that person, then it is absolute our responsibility. It becomes my responsibility, because the professor who got his account hacked or her account hacked doesn't really responsible for the fact that I made a transfer. And then there were a lot of follow-up things like I have to go to police station, find a police station, but like most likely the person is not going to get his or her money back. So there is a such of that kind of cybersecurity related crimes in that in our regions, and I think it's also similar to South Asian countries as well. So yeah, I'm just sharing my current knowledge about the other cybersecurity awareness topic. Yeah.
Great, thank you both. Adnan, I'm gonna actually shift to another question if that's okay, and I'll start with you. Unfortunately, we're getting to the end of our time. It's gone by so quickly with all of you sharing your awesome insights. But a popular question from the audience was kind of what are some of the examples of behavioral change that you saw with the individuals or SMEs that you worked with? And Adnan, I'll start with you.
Right. So one thing that since our campaign is still ongoing, it's sort of difficult to measure behavioral changes in real time. But one thing we always do is on our campaign website, we have a dedicated website for the campaign. We actually have a cybersecurity assessment test. So we invite entrepreneurs and general civilians as well to take that test to get a basic judgment of their cybersecurity. And what we often see is a lot of people think that, oh, I already know about cybersecurity, I don't need to go through this. What happens after they take the test is that they realize that there are things that they had never considered happening before. So this is also something we realize a lot from our workshops. So alongside all of our online activities, we do a lot of in-person activities with MSMEs as well. So we do SME fairs or events, and we also organize workshops. So one very common feedback from the workshops we see is that a lot of people reach back to us and say that this is something that we didn't even know happened, and I'll explore this in the future. So one behavior change I'd like to highlight that we have tried to influence a lot is that not just giving them specific cybersecurity knowledge, but imparting in them the idea is that this is something that they should explore further on their own. They should get to know about this as much on their own as possible. So to help them do that, we also created a sort of repository of resources. So one other problem in Bangladesh was that there were very few localized cybersecurity learning materials. So we basically created a library of content. We have blogs, we have a few short videos. We also made a few fun content such as comic strips to highlight positive case stories as well. So basically on our website and on social media, we redirected everyone to explore content on their own and keep building their cybersecurity awareness beyond what just we are teaching them. So that's one thing that we have noticed changing in our audience in real time. And as our campaign does go on, we do hope to see more people adopting those best practices, but that will happen in a few months, I guess.
Thank you. So Tavi, any quick reflections from you on behavior change?
The online safety campaign is only run it's purely online campaign, so no in-person activity at all. And then so we mainly have everything run on Facebook and Facebook alone. And then so for us, like what we can learn is the reaction from the audience when like every time that the campaign release the new video message, like we can see like a lot of share, a lot of comment, and then some people put feedback. And at the end of the campaign, we be able to kind of like go back and then talk to the MSME that we did the interview from the beginning, just to learn, you know, like what changed after like they engage with like they seen the message across Facebook, and how it reflect in their behavior change. People reported about like, you know, like they pay more attention to their behavior, like especially when it comes to the online payment, because like there's a lot of like scam, and also like people try to kind of like hack people bank account or Visa card. So this can kind of like happen, and we also address that as a part of the stay safe and pay safe. So people kind of like do a lot of reflection and follow the tip and trick that the campaign provide. And then so in a way, like people report that, okay, they right now kind of like not to be like trusted thing easily when it comes to anything that associate with online, you know, or the link that we share, or like people borrow money, just like what Adam just mentioned. It's also something that they would have like the second question before they kind of like take any immediate response. So this is what we learned from the audience feedback.
Thank you so much. Unfortunately, our time has gone by extremely fast. I can't believe it. We've reached the end of our Q&A with the participants. But I just want to thank the panelists so much for taking the time to talk through all of the insights that you've learned. Feel free to continue sharing in the chat. We have a robust set of questions from the audience. But thank you to Adam, Adnan, and Suthevi for sharing their experience and also joining us late in the evening in Asia. We really appreciate it. And now, just to close it out, I'd like to turn it over to Mary Tyler Holmes, who is USAID's Deputy Director of the Indo-Pacific Office, to just close out our session. And thank you so much.
Good evening, everyone here in Asia, and good morning to those who are joining in the Western Hemisphere. Thank you again to SARDI and other colleagues in the digital space for inviting me to join tonight. It's been an interesting and robust discussion, and I've learned a lot from our speakers this evening. As cybersecurity threats continue to grow, they continue to exploit vulnerabilities in critical infrastructure systems, placing a nation's security, economy, and public safety at great risk. Increasing awareness of these threats among citizens can act as a critical first line of defense. Prioritizing the urgency for cybersecurity upskilling, USAID's Digital Asia Accelerator, or DAA, and the South Asia Regional Digital Initiative, or SARDI, implemented by DAI's Digital Frontiers under the Digital Connectivity and Cybersecurity Partnership, DCCP, aspires to improve cybersecurity awareness and the digital capabilities of small and medium enterprises and citizens alike across South and Southeast Asia and Mongolia. As digital access expands to more vulnerable communities and communities at the last mile across the globe, governments, donors, private sector partners, and civil society organizations need to invest in initiatives that promote greater cybersecurity awareness. It is our hope that you will reflect upon the lessons learned as presented in our webinar today to better iterate new cyber awareness efforts in your own spaces. As an aside, during my own foreign service career, I've worked in countries where freedoms have been quite closed spaces for democracy. Increased cyber security for NGOs, for the private sector, for small and medium enterprises really does make a tremendous difference for these organizations to operate, to be able to also continue issues like democratic freedoms and press freedoms. So really enhanced cybersecurity makes a big difference both in the NGO sector, in civil society, but as well as small and medium enterprises. And I've seen this in a number of countries. It makes a huge, huge difference. And I saw the question on how donors can get more involved. And I'd say, you know, there are a lot of areas, again, where increased cybersecurity protects democratic freedoms. One of them is cultural preservation, particularly for groups who are vulnerable, religious minorities, other minority groups. Having their NGOs or journalists who are of these groups have greater access to best practices in cybersecurity can allow for greater freedom in these countries and for important issues to come out in the news and to get out in cyberspace. So we've seen this around the world, and learning from all of you on those best practices is extremely key. And so we hope you'll all continue to spread that information to others. Finally, by prioritizing cybersecurity, organizations can influence citizens to change their behavior around growing digital issues. By mitigating these risks that threaten all parts of our society, particularly for the most vulnerable, we can help unlock the full potential of digitization. Thank you to everyone who spoke tonight. Thank you for all that you're doing. You're making a tremendous difference around the world, particularly here in Asia, a part of the world that I live and work in and have loved throughout my career, and in many other places. Please continue to inspire others. We hope you enjoyed the presentations and your time with us today. Thank you.